Yo, you're probably wondering why I'm filming like this instead of inside like a normal person. It's because normal people who get normal ideas usually film videos normally, like a normal person. That's not what we're doing here today, because we actually have something interesting to say. What I will tell you is that, first of all, you'll never get a good idea sitting indoors. You should get outside more. But more importantly, you have to give up something good in order to have the opportunity to have something greater. You gotta be willing to give it up, or else the opportunity will never actually come to you. Now, this is just a cycle of death and rebirth that we have to go through as men. The cycle of death and rebirth is something that modern man simply doesn't want to go through. And so he stays the same. He stays exactly where he is, scared of having what's best for him. Because what he currently has is something good enough, is just that. It's not bad. It's not painful. Although it might suck the life out of him sometimes. He might be gooning away his life, literally. But it's not that bad. He's not suffering enough. And so he waits. He waits until it gets bad enough. He tells himself that, maybe one day, the perfect time, or when things get bad enough, then I'll finally change. And that's not the way that life's meant to be lived. That's not the way at all that life is meant to be lived. Life is meant to be lived from a place of following the heart. And the moment that we let our minds talk us out of doing what it is that we feel called to do is the moment that we give up all of our freedom as men. Because as men, our entire lives are forged through courage. And the greatest test of courage is whether you have the faith in yourself to follow your intuition and do what you already know is true, and do what you already know that you want to do, regardless of what your mind says. Now, what am I saying? Not to think? Maybe. Maybe you shouldn't think as much. Maybe you need to, like the people are saying, you need to retard max it. Maybe you do need to become a little retarded and stop thinking as much. Because once you learn to silence your mind, all of a sudden, you recognize this other voice that is not your head, that isn't your mind speaking. It's a very soft voice. It doesn't speak through words, but through feeling and through intuition. And you feel this in your heart. But you'll only be able to hear it if you learn how to silence your ego, how to silence your mind. And this voice, I had no idea existed until I actually learned how to tap into it. I didn't have the courage to tap into it until I finally surrendered. Until I said, I've had enough, and I actually want what's best for me. And I knew what was best for me was not what I wanted, so I had to surrender control. I surrendered control to God. And so God showed me what He actually wanted for my life when I learned how to listen to Him. When I learned how to listen to my intuition. Because what my intuition is just a byproduct. It is what God wants for me, is what I'm actually following my heart. And that took time to understand and notice when that voice was speaking through me. But once you learn how to listen and tune in only to that voice, your life will completely change. Because that is your compass. The people who suffer the most in life, especially in this modern society, are the ones who are so disconnected from their intuition. They're so disconnected from God. And by God, I'm not speaking about, this might trigger a lot of you when I say the word God, but God is not some ruler that's judging you for everything that you do. God is here. God is everyone and everything. He's in you. He's in me. He's the breath that makes up everything around us. And when you can learn how to tap into this energy that makes up everything and everyone, all of a sudden, life starts rearranging itself around you. Life is no longer this uphill battle or this struggle that a lot of us feel like life needs to be. Because as men, we're brought up being taught that our entire worth as men is built around how much success that we can get in this materialistic society, how much that we can chase, that we can hustle. It's all built around that, and it disconnects us from our heart. And this is what Jesus taught us, is that he essentially taught us to treat our neighbors as ourselves, to love our neighbor as ourselves, to love God, and he pointed us back to our heart. And so everything that we do is just a byproduct of our heart posture. And that is what bringing heaven to earth is everyone living in alignment with our heart posture. And for myself, I was so disconnected from that for years, for most of my life. And I was driven by lust and lack and desire and anxiety and low self-worth, low self-esteem. And I filled myself with all of these temporary pleasures, all these fleeting pleasures, through chasing casual sex, through drinking, doing drugs, hanging out with the wrong types of people, because I needed that external stimulus. I needed that feeling, that chase that gave me, because I was lacking that direction and that internal compass within myself. And so because I had this lack of self-worth and lack of love for myself, I saw these things in the world as a temporary fix for them. And the more that I got, the more girls that I slept with, the more that I felt like I needed. And the more I went out and I drank and I did whatever, the more that I felt like I needed. And it caught me in this trap where it would never feel like enough. And I reached a point where I knew that I couldn't live my life like this. I knew that there was more to life. I knew that I had this spark within me, although that spark was dwindling. I still felt something inside of me. I was a truth seeker. I wanted to know the truth. And although that led me to beliefs like the red pill and things like that got me in this victim mentality that I know that a lot of guys get trapped into, because it's very, very appealing, and we need some sort of answers for the problems in our lives. I eventually reached a point where I decided to give it all up. I stopped having casual sex. I stopped partying, I stopped drinking, I stopped watching porn a while before that. And I committed myself to change. I went celibate for over 2 years because I committed myself to change. And the more girls that I slept with, I felt this void getting bigger and bigger within myself. And I knew I couldn't live life like that anymore. So what happened after that was I finally started to fill my life with the inputs that would actually make life better. I started to deepen my faith in God and in myself. I started to actually take care of my health through going to the gym, taking care of my body, eating right, all this stuff. But like when I stopped having casual sex, when I stopped watching porn and told my friends that I was doing this, and I stopped partying and drinking and all this stuff, they thought I was crazy because they were still in the world, although I was separating myself from it. So I knew that would happen, but I wasn't necessarily ready for it, although that I knew it would happen. And so after that amount of time, I eventually quit my job, my 9-to-5 job that I absolutely hated. And I started my own business, doing consulting, and within like 5 months, I like 6x'd my income, what I was making in my 9-to-5, and then I scaled super, super fast. But I eventually burned out of that. It didn't last forever because I was still consumed by this state of lack and desire that was driving me before through casual sex and lust that was still within me. So although I was suppressing my desire, my sexual desire, it wasn't enough because I hadn't fully surrendered it yet. I was just using it as fuel for my own materialistic desires, for the money, for the status, for all of that. And it didn't last. It didn't give me what I wanted. And so I know that I had to go through that phase to realign myself with what it was that God wanted for me. And this is where I learned how to actually surrender to it, because most guys, most of us, won't change until our money is on the line, until our finances are on the line. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And for me, that's how it was. I had to go through that phase in order to learn how to actually surrender and open my heart and learn how to tap into this intuitive, creative voice in my heart that was God speaking through me. So I had to go through that, but it took me a long time to actually be able to tap into this. And once I did, I was able to fully separate myself and free myself from this state of lack and desire. Because in doing so, I filled myself with what I was seeking externally, right? The feelings that I was suppressing within myself that led me to lust and desire and seeking this validation externally through the world, through status, through materialistic things. And when I started to do this, it was very difficult. But the reason that I was able to see that is I was able to fill that within myself. I was able to give myself all of the love and the validation and the self-worth that I was seeking for in the world. And when you can do that, it becomes a superpower. It becomes an absolute superpower. And this is when you can start to bend reality to your will. Right? And so I was able to not only build myself back up and get myself out of that low financial point. But I was able to do it from a place of alignment, not scarcity, from wholeness, not chasing. And that poured into my relationships. I was no longer lusting, right? But I was also no longer suppressing my desires. Like I no longer felt the need to suppress my sexual desires or suppress my urges, because it just naturally wasn't something that I even thought about anymore. Once I had that full control over my state and I filled myself with everything that I wanted, I was actually able to attract a woman who matched my soul, who was able to meet me at my deepest point. Right? And so this is what happens naturally when you can surrender your urges, when you can surrender these parts of your ego that are selfish but also lustful. And so that's the main part here, is that you have everything that you need within you. Everything that you're seeking in the world is already inside of you. You just need to learn how to tap into it.